It is the month of free trade, and the leaves have just started to fall as a gnomish caravan winds its way through the swampy landscape of Ellen Island. On board are 4 unusual passengers. Watum, a man from an isolated village, following the tides of fate while seeking an answer to the burden that he carries.
He is about 5'10", bald, completely bald, dark-skinned. He's wearing sort of purplish robes. He has a necklace on a white chain, and at the end of the necklace is an eyeball inside a glass sphere that looks around and blinks.
Avastar, an outcast noble with elven blood, seeking to prove his worth to his family and to himself.
Avastar Tholej is a half-elf sorcerer. He is sitting very much within the wagon in order to make everyone kind of forget he's there. He is a noble, and normally he would not be seen dead in these sort of very primitive wagons. But unfortunately, on his long journey, he has decided to eventually seek some assistance in getting there.
Audius, a half-orc trying to build a new life for himself, whilst haunted by a past that he can barely remember.
He's a little over 7 foot tall. He's a half-orc, and Audius is particularly pale for one. He's got his receding jet-black hairline. The tips of his fingers have been replaced with kind of wooden prosthetics, and he's constantly tapping away at them, looking around.
And Drax, an escaped dragonborn slave, determined to find more of his own kind and help free them if necessary.
Upon seeing him in this campaign, he is around 7 foot tall, has a kind of coppery luster to his scales, looks kind of young for a dragonborn, if you can tell their age.
On their journey, the caravan is attacked by vicious goblins.
What's that up ahead in the road, man? Whoa, steady there, Villa, steady there.
Oh yeah. Thank the gods. They killed our horse. As the two of you are saying this, there's a and 2 of these crudely made arrows jettison out of the foliage to your right and thud a few meters away from you into the bodies of these horses that you've shifted to the side of the road.
At the smell of blood, Drax begins to approach.
Ah! Normally we don't see them this far south. Up in the mountains to the north, maybe, but never this far south.
Drax ready his shield and prepare to strike.
Seeing one of my newly met companions actually get injured, I went from amused to excited to now I'm kind of angry.
Through the trees there's and a crossbow bolt hits the thing in the side. It goes, ah!
During the affray, they help rescue a woman and her husband who were travelling to Battlebridge and were set upon by these bandits, these goblins who claim to have been driven down from their northern homeland by an unknown force. Having repelled the goblins, they continue on to Battlebridge, where they depart from the caravan and seek lodgings at the Common Sword, a tavern owned by an old elf named Brius Conmac. As they enter the building, they see graffiti scrawled on the side of it in chalk, saying, "Cortis lives." Audius is visibly shaken by this and explains to his companions that Cortis was a notorious bandit he believed that he had already killed some years previously.
Cortis is a vicious bandit.
After delivering some coin to the town guard, they discovered that it was local children who had little connection to each other who were writing the graffiti. When they tracked down one of the children, the child claimed to have seen an armoured man in a dream who told him to write the graffiti on the walls. The child seemed fine, but when pressed and questioned further, the child threw itself at Audius, screaming, "Cortis lives." Eventually they were able to wrestle the child into a town guard's cell.
You cast your sleep spell, you feel the magic as it leaves you. You're sure you've cast this spell entirely correctly. You can almost feel the magic move into the small thrashing body of this child. As you cast the spell, the child's head literally rotates all the way around. So it's now facing towards you, and it continues this maniacal laughing.
I am going to take a step backwards, maybe 2.
So Tractor's going to use one of his spells as well. He's going to reach out with one of his hands and grab the boy's shoulder and look at him in the eye. And with a kind of far off sound, he's going to say the words, "Becalm your soul,"
and negotiate with the god to help them solve the matter. The captain of the town guard, Talamh, agreed and also gave Avastar an invite to a Lascaris noble ball being held in 5 days' time. Drax was left alone with the possessed child whilst this was going on. The child, or rather the creature that dwelt within it, tempted him with knowledge about his own kind, and claimed a shared past with Audius, but the stalwart Dragonborn was not swayed by these infernal promises.
Of course, if you're, well, let's just say I'm a merchant of sorts. If I were to give you some direction to where you might find some of your family, what would that be worth to you? Drax of the Copper Dragon bloodline.
Obviously, that would hold quite some value.
That's not what I asked. What would it be worth to you?
I'll have no interest in money.
Well, that's good, because I don't have any.
But obviously you have some sort of bargain you'd like to make.
I'm simply making light conversation. I assume your friends will eventually come down when their mediations are dealt with, and eventually I will grow tired of this and I will leave this body and go elsewhere once I get tired of these 4 stone walls. I'm simply passing the time. It's a simple enough question, but what would it be worth to you?
Why would I be interested in making deals with a creature that likes to use children?
Returning to the common sword, they are told about the Midnight Patrol, a spectral unit of soldiers that marches the streets. All sensible people in Battlebridge know of it, and when the bells chime 12, they immediately retreat indoors, locking their windows and barring any exits and entrances to their buildings. Audius makes contact with a halfling named Alfio, who offers to bring him into a guild if he proves himself by assassinating a target that he will be given at a later date.
I sit in front of them, but as I do, I'm going to take a glance at them, and I want to use investigation to try to figure out as much as I can about them, hoping to, in the forthcoming conversation, impress them with this knowledge.
Wow.
So you went mad. But
well, let's just say mine are for a practical purpose and leave it at that, shall we?
Well, it's nice to see some people that move around the same circles as I do.
What circles do you move in, stranger?
The kind that people don't like to talk about at. Yeah. I look over at like a bunch of nobles.
Avastar, unable to resist, scoffing at the provincial beliefs of these townsfolk, peers out of his window as the clock chimes midnight and sees this grisly patrol of ghastly figures walking down the main street. As he looks at them, one of the ghosts meets his gaze through a translucent face, and he feels the years pressing down on him as the half-elf is aged 10 years.
You hear a distant clock chiming midnight, a solemn bong, bong, counting up to 12. And you notice as each of the chimes occurs, the low-lying mist seems to be getting thicker and more dense. And eventually, as it chimes 11, you start being able to make out vague shapes in the mist. And as it chimes 12, you rubbing your eyes, you see these spectral figures clad in armour, some human, some elven, even some orcs, so stand up as though they've been crouched down in the mist. They're translucent. You can see part of the way through them. They appear to be standing in like a military formation, a block of troops holding weapons, staring straight ahead of themselves. Then as the 12th chime sounds, they begin marching in formation in lockstep through the street towards the old bridge, their legs lost in this swirling, low-lying mist.
I'm gonna lean out of my window and look to see if anyone's controlling them. I'm sort of whispering, "That's impossible. How are they doing that?"
Make me a perception check.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Right. What's my perception? Not very good is the answer. Okay. Oh. I get -1 as well, which is even better.
Okay. As this huge unit of troops, more seem to be joining it all the time, some of them occasionally being lost in the now very thick fog that's rising seemingly from the streets of the town. As they get level with the tavern, the Common Sword, one of them stops moving. It turns round and looks up at the window that you're half hanging out of, and you can see this skeletally gaunt, translucent face. Okay, you're quite shaken up by what you've seen, obviously, and you plop back down in your seat, sort of listening to these footfalls disappearing. And as you sit down on the chair, as I described previously, there's like a mirror over the desk facing you. You see your face staring back at you, reflected in the mirror. And it might just be your imagination, but you notice like a few extra lines and like wrinkles on your face.
I immediately feel my face, see if I can feel them myself.
You can indeed.
I have a look around for if there's another hand mirror or something reflective.
Yeah, no problem. You pick up a hand mirror, you see the same thing in the mirror.
Okay, in that case,
you're not entirely sure, but you look as though you're about 10 years older.
In that case, I definitely run out of the room and try and find a tomb.
The next morning, Audius finds a letter outside his door, sealed with black wax. As he opens it, he sees the name Samantha Lascaris written on it and knows this is his target. Wanting to track down a scholar to find out more, he eventually locates a man named Antheus, who lives in a crumbled, falling down tower. They discover after perusing Antheus's books that Cortis is a demon or infernal presence, a member of a group called the Five, who was summoned into this world ages ago by a cabal of mages called the Trismagoi. Arriving back at the guard tower, they pass one of the guards, Perseus, who they have met previously, on his way out to patrol, and Audius gives him a gold piece. The child, once they get inside, now seems fine with no signs of the previous possession. However, as they investigate this, there is a scream from further down the street, and running to investigate, they find a murdered town guard with a single gold piece placed on her forehead. Following the suspected murderer, they find a possessed Perseus scratching graffiti onto the walls, and rightly realise that the spirit has jumped into him.
You will leave this body to do what? To wreak more havoc and more destruction and more death upon an innocent peoples. We cannot permit this to continue.
A cloaked figure from a nearby roof blasts the possessed man with a wand and reveals herself to be a gold dragonborn named Eshgil. After revealing that demons in spirit form cannot cross a line of salt or other pure materials, they place Perseus in a circle of salt. Audius has the idea to tackle him, pushing his body out of the circle, leaving the spirit trapped within. Eventually it fades away, cursing the heroes, and is returned to the abyss. Eshgil claims to work for a society of mages. She reveals that the Gith originally built Battlebridge as some sort of magical seal, and that any attempts to interfere with the magic that flows through the town could have disastrous consequences.
Alright. As I'm following, alright, you better tell us what this is all about.
If further dangers to this seal arise, please do not hesitate to ask us for assistance.
They return to the Common Sword, where the bard, Sophia Vidalis, is very upset. They discover that she fled from an unhappy marriage and believes that her husband may be in Battlebridge.
She saw someone who reminded her of her husband in Battlebridge. I'm sure it's nothing. We've had a couple of incidents like this before where she's seen someone who vaguely looked like her husband, and she's thought that he's come to take her back. And I've said to her, if she gets worried, not to lose her mind over the matter, simply to come here, calm down, take a rest. She's resting in my quarters at the moment. I'm sure once she's reflected on the matter and calmed down. She'll be fine. But I've asked my son to cancel tonight's performance. Simply, I wouldn't want her trying to perform in front of people when she's distressed.
A couple of hours later, as they are sat down drinking, the husband arrives at the tavern, banging on the door and demanding to be let in. As a fellow noble, Avastar is able to convince the angry husband, who introduces himself as Nico Edgemore, that his wife has already left Battlebridge and has headed southeast to the Folaith Forest. Nico departs, swearing vengeance should they be lying.
Yes, now where was it I saw her? Folaith. Yes, I saw her in Folaith a few days before I came here.
Folaith? What on earth would she be doing in that swampy morass of nothing?
I know, it is a little odd for a venue choice, isn't it? I have no idea. I was simply passing through, and while it wasn't a very memorable place, she made a very memorable performance.
One of the thugs leans in, sort of puts his hand gently on Nico's shoulder and says, well, there's that little village out there, ain't there, boss? And he's like, you mean Cadell? What on earth would she be doing in Cadell, a village of woodcutters? He's like, well, they say they've got like elves and that around there, and she did always like singing. She was always like interested in elves, so maybe she's gone to try and like look them up. At which point Nico says, yes, she was always given to flights of fancy like that. I suppose that could be the case. If you have been honest with me, Avastar, then I will make a mention of it when I return to Castle Edgemore. However, if you have played me false, then you will be seeing me again and in less convivial settings than this.
A short time later, they visit the Temple of Abraham. The visiting priest, Lady Cassandra, conducts a ceremony where she touches a blessed wand to the forehead of congregation members. It glows white when it touches someone who has divine promise. The wand glows for Drax and Watum, does nothing for Avastar. However, it turns black and drips a viscous red blood when it touches Audius. Shocked, they discuss this with Lady Cassandra, who has no idea what has caused this effect, but claims the wand was given to her by her mentor, High Father Aesop, who lives in the village of Abraham, some distance to the west. Watum and Cassandra come to believe that their wands may be opposites. Cassandra is destined to bring the light of the divine into the world, and Watum is for some darker and as yet unknown purpose.
I must admit, I am a bit fearful. If your wand's purpose is, as you say, to bring light to the people, that bodes ill for the purpose of this wand.
Back at the Common Sword, Audius talks to Njog, the Orc barman, about a figure of Orcish legend called Thaddeus Villan, and he's advised to seek out the Witch of Trolltown.
You got about Thaddeus? What was that? Thaddeus!
Can't say
Yeah,
that.
what about him? Hold on a second, I'll come over. Save me shouting. Boom, 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 boom. That's a good idea. I know.
And he stomps over to the table, sort of like pushing a few people out of the way as he does.
No, get out of it. Make some room.
And he storms through, like plonks himself down unceremonious at the table. Yeah, well, you must have heard the stories about Thaddeus Villan. Well, yeah, every orc knows the stories. Well, way I hear it, what my dad told to me, like back in the day, ages ago, must be 5 years ago now, a long time ago. He was, you know, like the old tales about how loads of like the tribes of orcs like rallied to the Gith and were sort of like their soldiers and their dogs' bodies. Well, that's all been blown out of proportion, if you ask me. It was only a few tribes went over to them. Not all orcs like behave the same way. Like not all humans behave the same way. And apparently, this, from what I hear, this Thaddeus, his tribe were one of them lot that were like, I suppose, like conquered by the Gith, if you say that. And there's all manner of like weird rumours that he tried to make some like bargain with like evil powers and stuff like that so he could free his tribe from the Gith. I don't know how much of it's true. You know how these things get like blown up.
Overhearing this conversation, Drax reveals that he had heard the tavern owner, Breus, mention Thaddeus and having encountered him during the Gith War many years previous. Audius speaks to Breus, who is drunk and depressed about the friends that he lost many years ago during the war. And the half-orc is told a tale about an orc war chief called Thaddeus, who was attempting to free his tribe from the control of the Gith. To do so, he made a pact with dark powers, transforming himself and his victims into blood-drinking nightwalkers.
Please understand, given the conflict with the orcs that had allied with the Gith at the time, we were uncertain what side of the conflict Thaddeus and his tribe fell on. So I sent a couple of scouts first to attempt to see if the way was safe for us to go. When my men returned to me, they were as pale as the mountain snow, as though all of the life had been taken from them. Their limbs were trembling. I've never seen such fear in an elf soldier's face before. When we arrived there, the bodies that we found, if I thought my men had looked pale, they were nothing compared to the skin of the people we found. It was like marble, cold, white to the touch, as though all the life had been drained out of them somehow. Their faces, oh God, I'll never forget those faces. The horror, the fear etched on the face of every man, every child, every woman that I saw as I walked through that blighted place.
My gods, the corpses all rose back, didn't they? He had changed them.
Yes, we managed to burn them. That was the only thing I could think to do. But by the time we'd done that, we weren't expecting to face such demons. Only myself and 4 other of my men made it away from that damn place. We didn't have the strength to press on to see whether we could actually find Thaddeus himself. We assumed that he was responsible, but we had to report back to our base of operations. We couldn't carry on moving the mountains. The mountainside were crawling with Gith troops. The 6 of us would have been easy pickings. We had no choice but to retreat.
As the evening grows late, Drax retires to his room but notices the door isn't closed as he left it. He throws it open and sees a robed figure poised behind the door, no doubt ready to strike him. The figure smashes through the window to the outside and drops down into the street below. Drax, without missing a beat, follows him.